The effort demanded of the sadhak is that of aspiration, rejection, and surrender. If these three are done, the rest is to come of itself by the grace of the Mother and the working of her force in you. But of the three, the most important is surrender, of which the first necessary form is trust and confidence and patience in difficulty. The supramental yoga is at once an ascent towards God and a descent of Godhead into the embodied nature. The ascent can only be achieved by a one centered, all gathering upward aspiration of the soul and mind and life and body. The descent can only come by call of the whole being towards the infinite and eternal divine. The call and the aspiration are only first conditions. There must be along with them and brought by their effective intensity an opening of all the being to the divine and a total surrender. All the play in this world is based on a certain relative free will in the individual being. Even in the sadhana, it remains and its consent is necessary at each step. Even though it is by surrender to the divine that he escapes from ignorance and separateness and ego, it must be at every step a free surrender. Surrender is not easy. It is resisted by a large part of the nature. If the mind forms the will to surrender, all these inner obstacles are bound to show themselves. The sadhak has then to observe them and detach himself from them, reject them from his nature and overcome. Outer obstacles cannot prevent the inner surrender unless they are supported by resistance in the nature itself. An entire self consecration, a complete equality, an unsparing effacement of the ego, a transforming deliverance of the nature from its ignorant modes of action are the steps by which the surrender of all the being and nature to the divine will can be prepared and achieved. A self giving true, total, and without reserve. Perfection will grow in the measure in which we can surrender ourselves. First to the guidance and then to the direct action of that power and of the master of our being and our works to whom it belongs. And for this purpose, faith is the essential. Faith is the good, great motor power of our being in our aspirations to perfection. Our ego, boasting of freedom, is at every moment the slave, toy, and puppet of countless beings, powers, forces, influences in universal nature. The self abnegation of the ego in the divine is its true fulfillment. Its surrender to that which transcends it is its liberation from bonds and limits and its perfect freedom. Surrender means to consecrate everything in oneself to the divine, to offer all one is and has, not to insist on one's ideas, desires, habits, etc., but to allow the divine truth to replace them by its knowledge, will, and action everywhere. Our faith must first be abiding in the essential truth and principles of the yoga. And even if this is clouded in the intellect, despondent in the heart, overwhelmed and exhausted by constant denial and failure in the desire of the vital mind, there must be something in the innermost soul which clings and returns to it. Otherwise, we may fall on the path or abandon it from weakness and inability to bear temporary defeat, disappointment, difficulty, and peril. A great and wide spiritual and intellectual a great and wide spiritual and intelligent faith. Intelligent with the intelligence of that larger reason which accents to higher possibilities is the character of the Shraddha needed for the integral yoga. Sadhana is necessary, and the divine force cannot do things in the void but must lead each one according to his nature to the point at which he can feel the mother working within and doing all for him. Till then, the sadhak's aspiration, self consecration, accent, and support to the mother's workings, his rejection of all that comes in the way, is very necessary, indispensable. The psychic being has to be surrendered consciously and with more and more knowledge. The psychic aspires to the divine or answers to things divine. It is surrendered in principle, but it has to develop its surrender in detail, carrying with it the surrender of all the being. It is true that the force can work effectively without any effort on your part. It is true that the force can work effectively without any effort on your part. It is not the effort, it is the accent of the being that it needs for its work. If one has the principle of surrender and union in the mind and heart, there is no difficulty in extending it to the obscurer parts of the physical and the subconscious. It is through self giving or surrender of soul and nature to the divine being that we can attain to our highest self and supreme reality. Complete self surrender must be the chief mainstay of the sadhaka because it is the only way by which the absolute calm and peace can come. Surrender of the nature is not an easy thing and may take a long time. Surrender of the self, if one can do it, is easier, and once that is done, that of the nature will come about sooner or later. The knowledge of God is not to be gained by weighing the feeble arguments of reason for or against his existence. It is to be gained only by a self transcending and absolute self consecration, aspiration, and experience. There must be accepted and progressively accomplished a surrender of our capacities of working into the hands of a greater power behind us, and our sense of being the doer and worker must disappear. Certainly, this is no shortcut or easy sadhana. It requires a colossal faith, an absolute courage, and above all, an unflinching patience. To understand divine moments, one must enter into the divine consciousness. Till then, faith and surrender are the only right attitude. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Aurobindo Mira. Hari Om Tat Sat. Shri Aurobindo.